people think you're pro-Modi? Do you make a lot of national political content as well now?
Some people might perceive it to be national political content, but to us, it's business content.
I personally feel that the right of opinion here lies with Christians and Muslims in this country. If they're truly feeling threatened, there is something wrong.
There is one thing to feel threatened and there is one thing to be threatened.
What's the socially responsible thing to do other than constantly be centrist? What do you do as a creator? I want to call on people on the show from all sides. Disagree with me, school me, try to come to the truth.
I think the solution to this is debate. The government is the godfather of the market. And just like the movie Godfather, no matter how big you are, if the godfather doesn't like you, you will not survive.
Also, one layer deep, we're capitalists and we want to be everyone's friends.
I am a capitalist who wants to be friends with only capitalists because they understand and respect what I am doing.
Do you buy the BJP narrative about अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं?
When they say अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं, do you realize it is talking to the grassroots of Indian society and it is instilling hope. Hope is very, very powerful.
This is part 2 of our conversation with Ganeshprasad from Think School. If you've not watched part 1, that's perfectly fine because they're completely unrelated, honestly. Part 2 is much more centered around the topics that the YouTube channel Think School is known for. If you've ever wanted to know more about Ganesh's research-oriented side, if you've ever wanted to dive deeper into geopolitics with this person, but from a slightly podcasting perspective, this is the conversation for you. I enjoy my geopolitical conversations, but when you hear them from someone who's only in his mid-20s, it hits different. So this was a friendly and fast politics and geopolitics oriented conversation. Enjoy Ganeshprasad of Think School on TRS. This is a true YouTube collaboration. I just want to get straight into geopolitics. That's what Think School is known for. Think School's here with part 2 of this special conversation. This one's going to be fast, direct, and explosive because we're also going to get into national politics. Ganesh, welcome back, brother.
Thank you so much for having me here, bro.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
What would you like to say about geopolitics?
Geopolitics is very complex, man. It depends on what you want to know. Because I've been studying geopolitics for about 2 years now, and it has taught me so much about business.
And life?
Life, not really, because I'm not a very deep person. I'm a very shallow person, bro. I don't think so much. I don't meditate. I don't have like deep philosophies of life, but I've got very firm philosophies about business. And before I studied about geopolitics, I always thought, yeah, there is geopolitics and there is business, just like everybody thinks. And then I started to realize that geopolitics is such a powerful market force that as an entrepreneur, if you don't understand geopolitics, you're missing out on a lot. But at the same time, if you understand geopolitics, it will give you a very big competitive edge.
For example?
For example, let's take the example of Russia-Ukraine war. When the Russia-Ukraine war happened, do you know the edible oil market, it got shattered. Do you know what happened? So, if you look at the edible oil market, you will see that there are 4 types of oils. Canola, soybean, palm oil, sunflower oil. Sunflower oil, 80% of it comes from Russia and Ukraine. Soybean comes from Argentina and Brazil. Canola oil comes from Canada. And palm oil comes from Indonesia and Malaysia. Now what happened during that time was that in Argentina, they had a bad harvest season. Same was the case with Canada. So soybean oil and canola oil, they were available in very less quantities. Then when it comes to sunflower oil, because most of it came from Russia and Ukraine, the trade lines got cut off. So the entire load of edible oils fell upon Indonesia and Malaysia because they were the only ones who had palm oil. Now, when the entire demand got channelized towards palm oil, the cost of palm oil shot up. Now, most people will ask, so what if palm oil's cost shoots up? When it shot up, the FMCG companies, they suffered a lot. You know why? Because the soap that we use, 20% of the cost of manufacturing that soap goes into palm oil. So when the cost of palm oil shoots up by 100%, either the profit margins of these FMCG companies shrinks or they'll have to increase the cost. Similarly, the cost of fertilizer, it increased drastically because again, most of it comes from Russia and Ukraine. As a result, the cost of producing food shot up and lots of other things happened. So, and during this time, by the way, one billionaire became a beneficiary of this palm oil demand. And that was Adani. You know how? When Indonesia, after a certain point, they banned the export of palm oil. But they did not ban the export of crude palm oil. They banned the export of refined palm oil.
Why?
Because it was just another barrier. So if you want to ship crude palm oil, you can ship it immediately, but still somebody will have to process it. But if you ship refined palm oil, because all the processing is done over here itself, you could immediately ship it and it is ready to use. So it's almost like just putting out one more barrier. So when they started shipping out crude palm oil, anybody who processed crude palm oil became a beneficiary. In India, that was the Adanis. So do you realize geopolitics, a simple, not so simple, but if a major event like Russia-Ukraine war happens, it affects everybody. And when the Russia-Ukraine war happened, because the oil price shot up, inflation happened all across the world. In India, because inflation shot up, the RBI had to increase the repo rate, as in the rate at which they lend to the banks. And because of that, the interest rates to people like you and me, that increased. So our home loan EMI increased because of the Russia-Ukraine war. Because our home loan EMI increased, our purchase power decreased. As a result, less people went to movie theaters, less people bought fancy clothes, because of which their business got affected. But if you today go out there and ask an entrepreneur who's dealing with clothes as to how does RBI's repo rate affect his business, they'll have no clue. And if you apply that to today's context, today because we are seeing the diplomatic battle between India and Canada, if there is a manufacturer in India for whom canola oil is an important raw material, when this diplomatic battle comes in the news, this person will be able to understand that if things go bad, India might impose import duty on canola oil, which means the price of canola oil in India might shoot up. As a result, he needs to stock up his inventory. This is the power of geopolitics. It helps you understand a very powerful market force, which could give you a competitive edge over your competitors.
You get an X-ray on the world of business because of geopolitics.
That your competitors are ignoring right now.
Would you argue that now, because geopolitics is a trend on YouTube India at least, like I don't know how it's become a trend, but people have gotten really into it.
Yeah.
You agree?
Because of the war.
I think generally even more. Like because I remember doing a lot of episodes with Abhijit Chavda way before the war, 2 years before the war, and I was like, why are people liking this content suddenly out of the blue? Okay, I'll do geopolitics. That's how my mind as a podcaster works. Like I just want to survive.
Okay.
My point is, like, I think Indians are generally very into geopolitics now. What will that result in for a whole nation? And first of all, is it fair to say that? Or at least a significant segment is into geopolitics?
Because a significant number of people are interested in geopolitics, what I believe is that the political system in India will actually get stressed. You know why? Because now that we're seeing the administration of other countries, people are getting new benchmarks. For example, earlier if you asked somebody about how did Singapore grow so fast, nobody will have an answer. But today if you go and ask people as to why is Singapore where it is, at least in the top tier of India, people will say it is because of Lee Kuan Yew, who is known as the father of Singapore. In 30 years, he turned Singapore into one of the most legendary countries out there. So people from India, if they never come to know about Singapore, their benchmark of great governance will be Congress. Right? But if they know about Lee Kuan Yew, their benchmark of great governance will be Singapore. Similarly, earlier, and you must have seen this on Twitter, that every time something between India and Pakistan happens, people are like, let's go to war. But now, after they have actually seen a war, people will know what is the cost of war. So that will result into a more matured audience who will know that right governance is not about going to war. It's about avoiding war. Raghu Raman sir says this very often, that war is a funny game. The only way to win it is to not play it at all. Right? So when this benchmark of great governance and a mature audience comes up, I think our political system will have to push its limits to become better and better. Simple example, 10 years back, nobody was interested in China. But today, at least with our contents, we can see that people are deeply interested to understand what's happening in China. And when people started to understand why is China so developed and we are not so developed, the answer is liberalization. They liberalized their economy in 1978. It took us another 13 years. We opened up our economy in 1991, right? So now people understand the power of liberalization. Why is it important to have foreign direct investment in India? And I remember when I was a child, I think I was in 10th or 11th standard, there was a huge debate about foreign direct investment as to why FDI is bad for India. But now that people have seen China, they know FDI is great for India. You got to have more international players here.
What was the reason it was even a debate back then?
The simple reason was people thought if Walmart comes to India, all the small shops, they will suffer losses. So they perceived a foreign entity as a rival who will kill the business. But in reality, what happened is that when more and more foreign companies came to India, business actually expanded. Business actually grew in India because of foreign entities. New benchmarks were set, because of which now even Indian companies have to stand up to the benchmark of the American companies to be able to do business and to be able to survive. So the mindset during that time was more socialistic. Let's just keep ourselves restricted to whatever we have and let's not bring in foreign entities, because anything that is foreign is obviously scary, right? That was the case. But now things have changed. People like, how much FDI have you got? Why aren't we having more companies come in? Why isn't Apple manufacturing in India? And the moment Apple started manufacturing in India, people were so happy. The moment we heard this news that Reliance is getting in Shein, people became excited for two reasons. Number one, because of Shein, and number two, because we're getting a huge brand to India, which means more opportunities. So that's the mindset shift. New benchmarks and hence more expectations, hence more pressure on the leaders of our country.
Okay. Do you make a lot of national political content as well now? And do you think you'll ever get into it?
National political content, it's quite arguable, because some people might perceive it to be national political content, but to us, it's business content, but from a different angle. For example, we talk about government policies. What we realized is that when it comes to government policy, just like geopolitics is an important market force that most people ignore, the government is the godfather of the market. And just like the movie Godfather, no matter how big you are, if the godfather doesn't like you, you will not survive. But no matter how small you are, if you understand what the godfather is thinking, you will be able to progress. So most people did not know that government policies can be understood very well by something called government consultation paper, where the government actually puts out a document to ask opinions from the stakeholders and the people as to what do you think about this policy? This is the problem that we are solving, with diagrams and examples as to how will India look like a better place once this policy is executed. So we started to educate people about these government policies, entrepreneurs about government policies, so that they can understand the godfather better. So that is the type of content we produce, because of which some people may perceive it from a different way. But to us, it's just a different subject in business.
Do people think you're pro-Modi?
No. I mean, I wish people thought I was pro something. But the problem with creating neutral content is that you get hate from both sides. And the one message that I always want to put out to people is that by throwing hate at somebody for putting out the truth, is that you motivate that person to switch to one side. For example, if I make something that is pro-government, all these pro-government audience, they will love it. So they will shower love on me. They will forward it. There'll be lots of WhatsApp forwards and, people will appreciate it. So in that policy, if the government is doing a good job, they did a good job, hands down. But in the next video, if I start criticizing the government, this audience will hate me. And in the previous video, the anti-government audience, they threw hate at me. So to them, I'm a bad person anyways. But now when I make a video on something that is criticizing the government, even the pro-government audience now hates me. So if I make neutral stuff, I will get hate from all angles. Which unfortunately or fortunately we stick to, because Think School is all about one thing, truth, which is backed by data. So that is the reason why some people might perceive us to be pro-Modi, some people might perceive us to be anti-Modi, and so on and so forth. In fact, in a single YouTube video, my benchmark of success for something political is when you get hate from multiple parties. So some people will say BJP Bhakt, and below the same comment you will see Congress Bhakt also. So when that happens, it means you are truly neutral. And the message that I want to put out to the audience is that the moment you tell people that this guy is pro and you start throwing hate, what you do is that you motivate that person to stick to just one side, because now the content creator is afraid that if I annoy the people who showered love on me, then I will end up getting a lot of hate and I might get cancelled. So sticking to truth is very difficult, but we end up doing that anyways because we are not making political content, we are making business content, and politics is just one subject that we address while teaching business.
Also, one layer deep, we're capitalists and we want to be everyone's friends. At least for me, that's true, man. And I'm not talking about both Congress and BJP. I'm talking about all my potential customers.
I'm a capitalist who wants to be friends with only capitalists. With all the capitalists. Because you told me that you take up a lot of sponsors. You should not do so many sponsorships. I said, sir, that's great, because if business audience does not understand that what I'm doing is running a business, that audience is not my audience. So I don't want the socialist audience at all. I want only capitalists who understand that if I have to make 20 minutes of great content, that will require me to pay salaries, and that comes at a cost. I just can't be myself and produce 250 high quality videos with so much insights. If at all there is an audience who understands the cost that I'm paying, who respect the business that I'm building, I would want them. And if people do not respect that, I wouldn't consider them to be my audience. So taking up sponsors gives me dual benefit. A, money. B, it eliminates the people who are not the ideal audience of Think School. So I'm a capitalist who wants to be friends with capitalists because they understand and respect what I am doing.
Possibly the reason I want to talk to you about politics is I think that the process of content creation and the amount of research that especially someone like yourself does, it changes your mind a little bit. And in the same way that geopolitics gives you an X-ray on business, I do believe that content gives you an X-ray on society in many ways.
Yes.
And that's what politics is effectively about.
Yeah.
Genuinely, my heart tells me you're a centrist. My heart tells me that I'm a centrist as well. Okay, because often in the long-term process of content creation, your heart might tell you something and the whole world might tell you something else.
Correct.
I want to talk about my whole process of creating political content. Okay. Now, I remember Abhijit Chawda being the first person we had on the show. I do believe Abhijit Chawda is definitely slightly right-leaning.
Okay.
Now, his episodes took off a lot.
Okay.
Therefore, I got people who are adjacent to him, both in terms of mindset and views. And it gave me a very right-wing image. I'm genuinely a centrist. I don't have a very, very strong political opinion because I truly believe that we are an outcome of the algorithms in modern day society, the whole social dilemma narrative.
Correct.
I also feel as media professionals, you need to be centrist. I say this in so many episodes. It's because when you're centrist, you don't have a filter on your eyes, and content requires you to have a lot of clarity on the world.
Correct.
Especially long-term content, especially this kind of content where it's so raw and so much can go wrong.
Yeah.
So I've understood that if I want to survive in the long term, I have to be ethical, and a big part of it being ethical is centrism. Now parallelly, I get to talk to the politicians from both sides. I've had Congress MPs on the show. I've had AAP MPs on the show. I made the mistake of having 4 BJP MPs back to back on the show to begin this whole political phase. Got heavily categorized as pro BJP, BJP Bhakt, bought by BJP, this, that. I've never faced that kind of national level cancellation where dur ke rishte, like all my uncles and all are sending me messages saying, what have you done, son? Like, what's happening? They've never even seen my content.
Okay.
Some other pro BJP relative is messaging me saying, so proud of you, beta. This is so good. And I'm like, what the is happening in my life, dude? I'm just a podcaster. Then I realized my mistake of having 4 BJP releases back to back.
Yeah.
Obviously, it'll categorize you. That was me being slightly naive, but also motivated about just beginning political podcasts. I've learned a lot about both the BJP and the Congress and even the AAP. I have figured that there is capability in all parties.
Yeah.
It's not like one party is better than the rest.
True.
But the way the political world is built out for the sake of elections and for the sake of media-based numbers, all politicians from all parties are hardwired and trained and coached to hate the other parties to the degree where they truly hate those political parties from their heart.
Really?
Oof.
Bro, I've met a few politicians and they're very much casual about the kind of hate that is being put out, because what they say is that it's not like they never call the MP from a different party and seek advices. They seek advices, they debate, they do everything. But when they come out in media, they're supposed to be opposite to each other so that the narrative is set.
My reading is that there's not hate towards specific MPs. They'll be friends. They'll be chilling together also. And I know that this is true.
Yeah.
But they'll hate the political party.
Achha.
They'll hate the ideologies to the degree where they will even lie about the other parties. I feel that Congress and AAP do this about BJP and BJP does this about the other two. Like where they will portray their own media narratives to fuel that narrative. Because what's happening through that missile of that narrative is that the silos that they've captured, which are the extreme right and extreme left, effectively, for lack of better words, will get even more into their mindset and will likely guarantee votes for them at the time of elections.
Correct. It is basically pleasing their minimum viable audience.
Yeah. Their silos.
Correct.
And this happens on both sides.
Yeah.
Okay, this is one thing I have definitely picked up from doing this political podcast, that there's capability everywhere. Dude, anyone in power has access to so much information. Okay, that information will lead you to likely taking the right calls in terms of hires. For example, the current government portrays UPA as a very failed government, which is not true. Even the UPA brought progress to the country. And similarly, the Congress and AAP portrays the current government as a piece of shit, which is also definitely not true. Dude, even the current government has done a lot. Like, I've met people who work with the government, like Sanjeev Sanyal, KV Subramanian, all these guys. They're very capable men and women, man.
Correct.
So anyone in power, especially in India, wants the best for the country, but it's for the sake of elections that they portray the other one as a piece of shit.
True.
And I don't see that changing. Unless in some way, if we actually have public debates between two parties and have cordial discussions, which is not going to happen until I think our generation is at that age where we are in power in politics.
Yeah.
Maybe that will happen because of a higher sense of collaboration that our generation has, thanks to a liberalized economy.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, or if you disagree.
True, that is
with me.
true. And you know, bro, it's not like every party has the capability to do great things. Capability exists everywhere. But some parties have a flawed philosophy of executing things. For example, the freebie policy. Have you heard about freebies?
Yeah.
So there is merit freebie and there is non-merit freebie. Merit freebie is sponsoring somebody's education so that that person can be uplifted. Eventually, that person will go on to make money. Let's say the government invests 90,000 rupees per year into somebody's engineering education. That kid, when he graduates, he will get a 4.5 lakh job. Eventually, he will lift his family out of poverty. After that, the government doesn't have to spend on welfare schemes on the family. But the other category of politicians, this is a merit freebie. So there are politicians who give out merit freebies for the development of the society, which has a tangible economic output. But there are some politicians who will give out random freebies, like probably a mixer or let's say laptops. And they will portray as if they're giving laptops for the development of the students. And those laptops don't work well at all. When they do that because with government money, with taxpayers' money, they can please an audience and get votes. So if you're wasting public money, that is bad. If you are investing public's money into future economic development, that is good. Like I said, they are both philosophies. So when somebody gives out a freebie, they can justify that and tell you how it will lead to a economic output. And sometimes it actually does. For example, in Tamil Nadu, they gave out TVs. And if I ask you on the outset, how will TV help generate economic output? You'll be like, dude, this is a waste of money. But you know what happened? When TVs were given in Tamil Nadu, the women who watched TV serials, they began to value themselves more. They began to understand feminism more. And there was actually a study, and I've made a video on it, which says that because of TVs and these TV shows, these women, they began to prefer having a female child. Do you see how amazing that is? And because even the men of the house started consuming that content, they started respecting their wives more. So when a party spends money and they have a philosophy, it must have a tangible economic output. If they do that, they can be categorized as a party that is doing a good job. But if they use taxpayers' money to bring out bullshit stories and please the public so that they can get votes, I wouldn't define that as a capable party. If I tell you that this party is giving out TVs, unless you have the data about what has been the impact of TVs, you cannot categorize that as a merit freebie or a non-merit freebie.
I'll tell you the lafda with data in these political conversations. When you take the same problem statement to both the political parties, so say the same problem statement, you accuse the AAP of having given out freebies for the sake of votes. The AAP will use data and back their argument in a very detailed way. And if you do the same thing with BJP, they'll use their data and back their argument in the same way, which is the trouble I face as a podcaster.
Correct.
Because people expect me to ask tough questions. Now, if I'm asking an AAP MP, he's going to, or she's going to play their playbooks thing, which they're trained for. And the same thing is going to happen from the BJP side.
Correct.
And as a podcaster, how do you cross-question data there? I'm not a journalist, firstly. I want other kind of content from them also. Which is what podcasts are. Podcasts are not about bringing forth data. Podcasts are about getting to the heart of the person, according to me. And I think I have the right to say that because I've been running this podcast for like 4-5 years. That's the nature of this content. So my solution here, and I brought this up in a podcast I did with Atishi, is that, dude, I hope Smriti Irani agrees to do a public debate with you. And then y'all can sort it out in front of the whole world.
Yeah.
Because when two elephants are wrestling, you really kind of get to read between the lines.
Yeah. I think another solution to this is also getting data from a neutral organization like RBI. So we made a video 1.5 years back as to why certain freebies are bad for the economy and how states are like becoming mini Sri Lankas in India. During that time, Sri Lankan problem was very popular. So RBI's document, and I've actually attached that in the link in the description of that particular video, it has all the details, bro. It has RBI's benchmarks. It has what the state is doing and why RBI considers that to be a good thing or a bad thing. So when you take data from a neutral organization like RBI, something as some organization which is as credible as RBI, you will get closer to the truth, if not to the absolute truth.
My question here is, what defines neutrality? Because effectively, even the RBI is run by human beings, each of whom have their own political opinion.
True. Like I said, you cannot get to the absolute truth. You can only get closer to the truth, which is why the RBI document, according to me, is the best and perhaps the most credible source to seek that information. Again, if that is skewed or not, I don't know. But the possibility of that being skewed is comparatively less if you compare that to the data that you get from political parties.
Okay, fair. I still don't see an out-and-out solution here. Like whatever we spoke about as the problem statement that each party is going to defend themselves is not solvable.
There is no solution to this. You know why? Because mobs don't understand nuances. Even if they put out the data, even if that data makes sense, how many people will understand that? It'll be probably the top 100 million people in the country who will understand that. But what about the helper that we have at home? Will they be able to understand these nuances? No. Daniel Kahneman talks about, in his book called Thinking Fast and Slow, he talks about system 1 and system 2. So system 1 is the monkey brain and system 2 is the scientist. The scientist can understand data, but the monkey can only understand emotions. So when you bring out religion, you appeal to the system 1. When you put out data, you appeal to system 2. And in this busy life that we are in, when it comes to something as important as finance, tax and stuff like that, we will apply our system 2. But when it comes to other things like politics, this and that, we just read headlines here and there and we draw our conclusions. So we operate from the monkey mind and not from the scientist mind. The reason why we are talking about data is because this is our profession. It's our job to read through data points and ask better questions, right? But if you ask our parents, they don't have the time to read so much data.
Fair to say that eventually even we'll become our parents?
If we are in this profession and we do justice to it, we should not become them. But if we don't, then we'll probably become our parents. Somewhere down the line, everybody's operating from system 1, bro. There's system 1, system 2. We operate with system 1 and system 2 all the time. The beauty is you can't predict when you're working with system 1, when you're working with system 2. The reason why they put out such extreme opinions is so that they can actually instigate an emotion so that they can appeal to the system 1 of most people.
Because the votes of Ganesh and Ranveer matter just as much as Jyoti and Jyotsna living in a corner of Arunachal Pradesh.
Yeah. And there you get quantity.
We are nothing, like
Exactly.
in the large term scheme of things.
Yeah.
Are we nothing though? Because I'll tell you what, maybe this is a bias. Totally could be. After this whole conversation about politics and what the general audiences think, I do believe content creators have a stronger role than the public gives us credit for. As long as the content creator is truly centrist.
Yes. We are very, very powerful. We have a lot of responsibility and we have to make sure that we do justice to the power that we've acquired. And if we don't do that, then we will become a different version of the politicians that we already have.
Yeah. Now I want to bring back what you said exactly about how if a content creator kind of puts a left of center opinion, then gets hate from the right side, and the right side's hate propels the content creator's emotional heart to become more left-wing, and then eventually he or she gets stuck in a silo of being anti-Modi or left-wing.
It's called confirmation bias.
And the same thing would happen to someone who began as center-right and wants to say the right thing, but then gets pushed into being extreme right and extreme pro-Modi. We are not able to see the Modi government's flaws. And on this side, you're not able to see the Modi government's positives.
Correct.
And the same with like UPA, etc.
True.
What do you do as a creator? What's the socially responsible thing to do other than constantly be centrist? My solution to this is I want to call on people on the show from all sides. Disagree with me, school me, try to come to the truth.
I think the solution to this is debate. So we are about to start a business podcast. And when we get entrepreneurs to our podcast, we will eventually also get politicians to the podcast. Like I said, in Think School, politics is a very important subject of business. When we get politicians to the podcast, the ambition, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that, is to ask them questions which are backed by data. And to tell them that these are the questions that we'll be asking you, and you be prepared to answer these questions with data. And then let the public decide whether they make sense or not. Karan Thapar used to run this show called The Devil's Advocate, where he used to ask very tough questions. So the best way to bring out the nuances, if not for 1.4 billion people, at least for the 100 million people at the top, would be to debate and to put out data as much as possible. Again, you will not get to the absolute truth because the world is so complex. You will just get a little closer to the truth than you are today.
Firstly, as a consumer of Think School, I'm very excited about the business podcast because there's some kind of layer of wisdom that podcasts bring out of guests.
True.
And I use the word wisdom cautiously. It's not knowledge and data.
Yeah.
You get to see both the monkey brain and the scientist brain.
Correct.
In podcasts. Secondly, I mean, this is me being the devil's advocate here. I would argue that especially BJP politicians, and if there's any watching this, I'm not accusing you of this. I want to live. But the BJP politicians often don't agree to come out to studios and often dodge difficult questions if they're asked by a kid. And if they are, I don't see too many journalists asking them difficult questions nowadays because maybe the BJP politicians aren't doing those difficult conversations. I would argue that as a citizen of the country, it would be better if they do. I would request. Please, if you can. If you can't, it's okay. But this is what I mean. And I brought this up with, we had Nitin Gadkari on the show.
Okay.
And I told him, sir, you know, we're scared of you. Like people are scared of the BJP. What do you have to say to that? And he opened up even more because of it. I don't think he opened up to the degree that I would love as a content creator, but he did open up to a very large degree.
Okay.
And he didn't try just dominating me on the show, which I had felt with other politicians from all parties. There is that sense of, hey, I'm a politician, I will dominate you.
True.
Because maybe they have a right to, they're the most powerful people in society.
I don't think they have the right to because they're after all answerable. It is their duty to be answerable. And if they refrain from doing that, I don't think they're utilizing the power the right way.
Yeah, maybe. So while playing devil's advocate to you, and I hope that when you start bringing politicians on the show, this trend of them calling you to Lutyens in Delhi changes and then they come to the studios.
Yeah.
To sense the energy, to sense that we're not coming from a bad place of accusation. We're coming from a place of education.
Yeah.
Because I think they're so used to journalists accusing them because journalists are also stuck in those silos after years of doing what they are doing.
They don't do respectful questioning, bro.
Yeah.
That's the problem. You know, when it comes to Smita Prakash ma'am, if you look at her podcast, she asks questions which are respectful. And here's where the fine line between disagreement and hate comes in. You know, if I don't agree with your content, doesn't mean I have to hate you. With journalists, that is a problem. I don't know how they're supposed to be trained for that. When they disagree with somebody, they will try to pin them down. You know, you ask questions to understand or you ask questions to pinpoint. They ask questions to pinpoint. As a result, the politician has to give them a fitting reply. But if they ask questions to understand, which is what Smita Prakash ma'am does to a large extent, it brings out the best version of that particular politician because now that person is not speaking like a politician, he's speaking like a human being trying to make you understand.
Yeah, yeah. My hope is that they start coming to our studios.
Yeah.
Which will lead to better conversations, better education. It'll also lead to, you know what, again, I'm just using the BJP as an example here. The BJP currently is heavily rejected by a significant part of urban India as compared to the rest of our population which lives outside of urban India. It's a very tiny sliver in the large scheme of things. Now that sliver are the people that I've grown up with who just accuse the BJP of everything. They've just rejected the BJP out and out. They think that the BJP can't do any good. And they also categorize me in that same category now because I had those 4 back-to-back podcasts. I don't even think they'll see my Milind Deora podcast or my AAV podcast. They just think that now, oh, this guy's kind of a social BJP, he's gone.
Correct.
Yaar, you are as bad as the people you claim to hate.
Correct.
Which are those Andhbhakts and all. You're also an Andhbhakt of another kind.
Correct.
The horseshoe magnet theory that the ends of the magnet are actually closer to each other than the center.
Yeah.
I hope and pray that when those politicians come to my studio or your studio, we can have slightly more centristy opinions. True. I don't think it's the scientifically correct thing to do to be on an extreme. You have to at least listen.
Correct.
You can't just jump to the conclusion that the Modi government is extremely good or extremely bad.
Yeah.
I see this a lot with our parents' generation. I don't blame them because they're the generation that was fed so much news over decades.
Yeah.
You don't even know the narratives they have in their head.
Correct.
But it's a request to everyone from our generation.
Yeah.
Do you see that around you? Like our friend circles, people our age?
Bro, my friend circle is extremely wise. They study data. And that is also because they're all entrepreneurs and they have to understand politics to be able to make better business decisions. So all my friends, they're very smart. And because they study data, they also understand the nuances. So they're pretty chill. What I'm worried about are the college students who have no idea where data is, who have no idea how to study data. So if they start having extreme opinions, they will be blindsided to both the good things and the bad things. So if somebody hates the Modi government by default, they will never appreciate the infrastructural development, the Digital India initiative, the UPI type thing that they have come up with and they've executed well. At the same time, if they blindly follow Modi ji, if the government does something that is not good, they won't be able to see it. As a result, they will be in chaos and they wouldn't even know. So when you are pro something, it does have incentives like, you have more aspirations, you have more hope, you have more faith in the government, which is very important. At the same time, you're also ignoring a lot of things which will again result into a disaster. So in this movie called Air, there is this statement which says that when you are a nobody, people would want you to succeed and they will celebrate you. And one day you will become a star. But the problem with becoming a star is that now people will hold you accountable so that you keep on scoring 40 points a game. And the moment you stop doing that, people will start thrashing you and they will bring you down. So it is always a curve. For some time, you are the underdog. Suddenly, you go from underrated to overrated and then people will bring you down. That happened with Congress. That will happen with every other party, which will go on to become significant. But the ultimate question is, what does the bottom of the pyramid think? Because that's where the actual winning criteria is. If you could appeal to the bottom of the pyramid, if somebody who's making 15,000 rupees is able to survive in this world better because you controlled inflation, they will eventually vote for you.
Or you speak to the monkey mind and make it about religion.
Yes. I do not want to say this.
I'll say it. That's not Ganesh. That's Ranveer.
If you improve so there are two parts to it. One is you improve the economics of the bottom of the pyramid. And second is you improve the social security of the bottom of the pyramid. So if they are made to feel safer in the India that they live in as compared to the India that they lived in, they will eventually vote for you. So now you could do that in two ways. Either you could be extremely radical and you could tell them that, if you want to survive, that means you'll have to go and attack somebody. Or you could go the other way around. That is, you could ask people to accept other people in the society better so that you could build a society that is more optimized for harmony than for conflict. That is exactly what Lee Kuan Yew did in Singapore, by the way. What he did was, he told everyone that we will not have separate neighborhoods. We will have all types of people, all 4 categories of people in the same neighborhood, in the same goddamn building, so that you guys learn to humanize each other and you treat each other as brothers and sisters and not as rivals. Because our war is not against each other, it is against the world. If we don't stand up for each other, the world is going to discard us. So if that mindset is inculcated at the bottom of the pyramid, it will take decades of time. I think the world will be a better place. But then all of this is just idealistic bullshit. The reality is far different from that. So social security and economic security is the ultimate combination to get the votes from the bottom of the pyramid.
I wonder how much this Singapore case study, because of the differences in the two sizes of the countries, applies to India. Because I have noticed that whether it's actual politicians or people going about political banter, lots of folks bring up the size of the nation situation. My personal opinion is that maybe only actual people in governance and administration have actual intel on how difficult or how easy it is to run such a big country. Not easy, but how difficult it is to run such a big country.
Correct.
Maybe that's why I don't know how much we can truly learn from Singapore. Especially when it comes to this whole communal tension angle that we are talking about. The one out and out negative about the BJP for me over the last 9 years, and I'm not anti-BJP by any means, but everyone who speaks against the BJP brings this up. I've asked all the BJP politicians who've come on the show about this. They defend it, obviously. They say that there's nothing like that. But I'm a citizen of the country. We're all citizens of the country. The communal tension in this country has increased during the last 9 years. Way more than I'd like.
Okay.
When I brought this up with Nitin Gadkari, he said that it's a marketing campaign from the opposition's side. that they project the BJP as a bit of a fascist regime, and they say that, hey, these guys are going to be responsible for eradicating people from other religions, non-Indic religions from this country. Okay, and when you bring it up with the BJP folks, they say, no, there's nothing like that. In fact, we've done a lot for Muslims. In fact, we've done a lot for minorities. And then they back it with data, as we spoke about.
True.
So the actual opinion makers when it comes to this communal tension situation are Christians, Muslims, other minorities, Parsis, who actually pro-BJP. Which is what I also find weird, that there is a minority that's very much pro-BJP.
True.
So could it be that I hear anti-BJP narratives a lot from Muslims and Christians? There are two possibilities here. Either things are actually bad for them, or, as we spoke about social media silos and information silos, are the minorities of our country being fed only one narrative, which is an extremely anti-Modi narrative. Now, I've tried talking to my Christian friends and Muslim friends about this. They are strongly of the opinion that it's case A, which is that as the privileged parts of this country, as the majority religion, we are not able to exactly see their problem, and we're not able to understand the daily life. And the actual problems are not happening in the cities, they're happening in the interiors of the country.
Yeah.
Which is true. You do sense some kind of anti-Muslim narratives when you talk to, say, a Hindu cab driver. I make it a point to ask them about their villages, just to understand what's happening there. I've spoken to some Muslim cab drivers in Mumbai, and even they say that, yeah, life has become difficult there. For example, they're questioned more in public back home. They're scrutinized more. Jibes are thrown at them more. Okay. Now, the argument that a lot of our Hindu brethren put forth is that, hey, look at Pakistan. At least we are not Hindus in Pakistan where everyone is killing everyone. That don't go about the whataboutery. Let's address this. I personally feel that the right of opinion here lies with Christians and Muslims in this country. If they're truly feeling persecuted, attacked, threatened, there is something wrong.
What is wrong is the formation of something called echo chambers. Have you heard about echo chambers?
Yeah, the same social media algorithm, vertical.
Very simple. There is one thing to feel threatened, and there is one thing to be threatened. There's a very thin border between both of them. The reason why a lot of people feel threatened is because some of them are actually threatened. They amplify it on social media, and the ones who are not threatened, they feel threatened. The concept of echo chamber basically says that if I have a certain opinion and I put it out on social media, eventually the algorithm will begin to feed me according to my confirmation bias. For example, let's say I'm a pro-Modi person. What kind of video will I click on YouTube? Will I click on a video that criticizes Modi ji? No. I will watch a video that talks about the development of India and how Modi ji is transforming India. The moment I click on that video, what will happen? The algorithm will understand that this guy will watch content that praises Modi ji. As a result, it will feed me more content. As a result, I will keep on watching more pro-Modi content. So my opinion about Modi ji will become very strong positively. Similarly, if you are a person who does not like Modi ji and you watch content that criticizes Modi ji, you will also be segregated by the algorithm as a person who consumes content that is anti-Modi. As a result, you will be fed that. Just like that, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on YouTube, once these echo chambers are made, what happens is tension starts building. Now, if you take the same concept and you try to apply it in the 1990s, except for small gatherings where our grandparents used to read newspapers or small gatherings where people used to meet during functions, apart from that, there wasn't a possibility of belonging to an echo chamber. But today, because of social media, you get ready access to that echo chamber. You get ready access to that information. And because of that, even though people are not threatened, they feel threatened. And when this piles up, you get a bipolar society. So that is what is happening, which is making people feel threatened overall. So the reality is far from what we see on social media. And because it is so nuanced, you can't actually comment on it. Because when it comes to some villages, Muslims feel extremely safe over there. But we may not see that as data points on social media. How many times have you actually seen people say, you know, dude, I'm a Muslim over here and I feel extremely safe over here and stuff like that, versus a person who's being beaten up and that video is being captured and then posted on social media. Right? So if you and I have this conversation, we are talking with a very limited data set to actually get closer to the truth. We are far away from truth.
Yeah. You know, I've always feared bringing up these names on the show because honestly, I believe in the last few months, because of those whole BJP podcasts and all, at least in the world of journalism, I have a right-wing image, which is not true. If anyone sees the show, they know what the true thoughts are within this mind. So I've always feared bringing up these names, but I will bring it up. And I'm saying this out of a place of respect, as well as it being an open invite to them. I want to invite both Rana Ayub and Faye D'Souza on the show.
At the same time.
At different times. Ideally, with a journalist who is fully pro-Modi.
Okay.
And I'll say why. I think Rana Ayub, first of all, at least for her own audiences, she is the face of bravery. And I'd followed her on social media for a very long time to understand exactly what's happening, just because her name had come up so much in social situations. So I wanted to see what's up. It's just a stream of Muslims are being persecuted in India content. Okay? Now, my counter to that narrative that Rana Ayub puts forth is exactly what you said. Which is that, hey, maybe this is just highlighting the cases where Muslims are persecuted, and possibly even Hindus are persecuted as much in certain parts of India.
Correct.
Which is true.
Correct.
And there are Hindu reporters who also report that in the same way and portray Muslims as the villains.
Correct.
So effectively, in Rana Ayub's narratives, the Modi government as well as most of the Hindus of our country are the villains. Or chalo, maybe if it's not portraying the Hindus of the country as the villains, it's definitely portraying the Modi government as the villain.
True.
I want her to be on the show and break down these thoughts. Ideally, with someone just like her from like the other side, which is doing the exact extreme opposite.
Yeah.
I believe Faye doesn't do exactly what Rana Ayub does, but she's talking to a very similar audience. And again, respect for Faye for leaving journalism, doing a whole independent journalism career. I've said this repeatedly. I think Palki Sharma, Smita Prakash ma'am, and Faye D'Souza are leading the charge when it comes to new age journalism in our country.
True.
Faye, I would just like by herself, like, you know, on the show. I want to break down a lot of things about the country with her. And I want to get to the bottom of this in terms of what are Muslims in our country truly feeling? Because these are the influencers. These are the people that at least urban Muslims are turning to and urban Christians are turning to. So they have a huge say in society.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not accusing either Faye or Rana Ayub of anything, but I am inviting them on the show in order to deep dive. Have you followed Rana Ayub's content or Faye D'Souza?
No, I don't follow politics as much. I study politics, which has got more to do with economics.
Okay. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about politics to do with economics. What do you think that the Modi government has actually done for the economy of the country? Because once again, I've spoken to economists on the show who have worked with the Modi government. No one's going to project their own work as having been flawed in any manner.
True.
Which is why I'm actually excited to listen to you. You're one of the most centrist opinions I've ever heard on the show. Let's go.
So I'll put forth a structure by which anybody who's watching this podcast can actually go on to analyze if a state government or the central government is doing a good job or not. Because this answer is so nuanced, you can't say yes or no to this. Okay? So there are three ways in which I break down the performance of a government: economic indicators, social indicators, and ease of doing business. Okay? Let's start with ease of doing business. In 1991, when our country got liberalized, it was liberalized on paper. We received a lot of foreign companies over here who created a lot of jobs. And after that, the GDP per capita shot up. The income of Indian middle class, it shot up. And that's how we saw the IT revolution. But what most people do not understand is that even today, it is very difficult to do business in India. For example, if I'm somebody who wants to set up a factory in India today and I want to invest 100 crores in a state, it is very difficult for me to start my business quickly because I have to get a lot of permits from the power department, from the water department, from the environmental department, and so on and so forth. And because there's a lot of delay in this clearance, a lot of foreign businesses, they just quit India and they would rather go to Vietnam, Indonesia, or Bangladesh, where things are much easier in certain sectors, like textile sector is for Bangladesh. So the moment this happens, employment in India is not created. Economy of India could have received a lot of positive output, but because these companies, they quit India and they go somewhere else, we lose out on a lot of opportunities. So the question that you got to ask yourself is, what is your state or your country doing to increase the ease of doing business in India? For example, when it comes to Gujarat, they came up with the concept of something called single window clearance system, where they have a single portal. And by the way, the government of Gujarat was so obsessed with bringing business to Gujarat that they set up a dedicated customer support team who can help out these investors and businesses to get through the government regulations, government policies and procedures so that they can set up the factory very quickly. There was a major problem of land acquisition, for which the Gujarat government built something called the land bank. And because of that, when Ratan Tata wanted to shift his plant from West Bengal to another state, he got a lot of offers. But Gujarat was the quickest state to give land to Tata. As a result, within 15 days, Ratan Tata was able to make a decision. They shifted to Gujarat. If I'm not wrong, the Tatas have invested 6,060 crores in Gujarat, creating a lot of employment. So a very important indicator of whether the government is doing a good job or a bad job is to check how easy is it to do business in a particular state. And now the government is coming out with something called National Single Window Clearance System, which is basically the extended version of what they did in Gujarat. 2 to 3 years down the line, if the execution is done well, then a lot of FDI will come to India, employment will be created, and the economy will progress. The second indicator of whether a government is doing a good job or a bad job is to look at economic indicators. Here we have something called debt to GDP ratio, as in what is the GDP of the state, what is the debt that that particular state has taken up, and what is the ratio. RBI defines certain standards. If you have a look at it, you'll be able to compare as to how well your state is doing. So if your state is taking up a lot of debt, either it is investing that into infrastructure or it could be giving out freebies. So you have to check what exactly is your state spending the money on.
How do you check?
You can check it using multiple ways. One of the sources which I refer to is the RBI document, which constantly points out that certain states are giving out freebies. In fact, the document that I'm referring to, it has a list of all the freebies which the RBI kind of questions, along with the amount of money that the government has spent on that freebie. For example, if the Punjab government has spent a lot of money into giving out free electricity, which is causing a lot of trouble to the finances of the state, RBI will point that out and it will say that the government of Punjab has spent XYZ 1,000 crores into giving out free electricity, and maybe that's not a good idea.
Is this hypothetical or is that true? Like, has the Punjab government done this? They have.
Yes.
They have.
Yes.
And the AAP is in power in Punjab.
Yes.
So I had asked Ateshi this exact question about freebie, this exact thing that you're saying. And I said that, how do you run the economy? Because I believe the inflation rate in Delhi, which has been the AAP stronghold, is very, very low. And it's kind of become a case study world over and all that. So she said that the way we are able to actually give what people call freebies is because the AAP is made up of politicians who are not corrupt at all.
Okay.
So that this is again not anti-AAP. Or maybe I'm just trying to explain to you guys how the world of politics also works. Very important conversation is happening right now. I'm sorry I interrupted you, brother. Let's go on.
Yeah. So if you have a look at that RBI document, it will help you understand whether those freebies are good or bad. And more importantly, it will make you question what your state is doing. Then you have something called interest payments to revenue receipts, as in how much is the state generating out of tax and non-tax revenue, and how much of that money is going into interest payments for the debt that that particular state has taken up. For example, if your income is 2 lakh rupees and you spend 1 lakh rupees into just paying the interest for your home loan, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Bad.
It's a bad thing. So interest payments to revenue receipts, it actually tells you how much of your state's money is being spent on just interest payments so that you can again keep a check on the state's finances. These are the economic indicators. There are multiple economic indicators, but these 2-3 economic indicators, they'll give you a fairly good idea. And then you have the social indicators. In social indicators, you have 3 major pain points of the society that needs to be addressed. Healthcare, education, and worker wages. Are the wages at the bottom of the pyramid increasing? Because they are the first ones to suffer the brunt of inflation. They're the first ones to get affected in case of a natural calamity, in case of a economic disaster for that matter. So if you understand that the worker wages are increasing, the state is doing a good job. If you understand that the number of people graduating in that particular state is increasing, the state is doing a good job. If you understand that the beds per capita in the state is increasing, the state is doing a good job. So this way, using ease of doing business, economic indicators and social indicators, you will be able to gauge whether the government is doing a good job or a bad job. Now, the homework for all the people who are watching this podcast or listening to this podcast is to actually go and seek this data and find out whether your state is doing a good job or a bad job. For reference, there are 2 videos that we've made. One on Gujarat, which is right before the Gujarat elections, and the other is right before the Karnataka elections. If you watch those videos, you'll be able to understand how we compare the data of that particular state with the RBI standards and with other states to help you understand whether the government is doing a good job or a bad job.
You've done this exercise, right?
Yes.
So you, at least in your mind, you have a list of the states that are doing a good job versus those that are doing a not so great job.
I have done this for a few states, which is Karnataka, Gujarat and Sikkim.
Why these?
Because Gujarat and Karnataka ka election tha, so we had to make a video on it. As a result, we did the analysis. When it comes to Sikkim, Sikkim has done some insane job with organic farming.
Okay.
And my team brought it up and they said that Sikkim is a case study that's worth addressing. And hence we took that up.
Which party is in power in Sikkim?
I don't know, bro. That's the beauty of our research. We never look at which party is actually in power in that particular state. We just look at what is the job that the government has done, which has turned that state into a prosperous state.
Can we actually look it up? If we're having like this conversation now. While that data is mined by my team, I want to ask you that, say if there is state A and B where the same political party is ruling, could it be that they have different performances based on the local government structure there?
Absolutely.
That depends totally on the human angles there.
Correct. There are a lot of factors. For example, if Gujarat has the luxury of having Surat, and then you have a landlocked state like, say, Uttar Pradesh, then obviously Gujarat is going to have multiple advantages as compared to UP, right? If one state by default has very high literacy rate and the other state doesn't, then by default, this state will get advantage over the other state. For example, when it comes to our northeastern states, they don't have great transportation. And that's because of 2 reasons. Number one, we've been ignoring them for a very long time. And secondly, the terrain is such that it is very difficult to build a highway. It is very difficult to build a railway line over there. Right? So again, over there, if a party is not building railway line or highways, it is both because they're ignoring it, they're not incentivized for it maybe, and thirdly, it could be because of the terrain. Now, depending on which state it is, we have to make the judgment. Again, this requires a lot of study and a lot of nuances, which is why I say, when it comes to nuances and data, mob will never understand nuance. A mob will never care about data. All they will care about is what exactly is the party's singular message out to the society. If they say that they will secure Hindus from certain threats, they just believe it and that is more than enough for them. If they say that they will give out TVs for free, they will give out grinders for free, at that point in time, for them, if TV is important, that's it. They will draw the conclusion about the party's performance based on how generous the party is during certain time periods. That is the reason why this conversation that we're having, even if it is put out to the world in different languages, it will barely appeal to the top 10% of India and not for the rest 90%.
Maybe only the top 1%.
maybe the top 1%. I'm just being optimistic to say 10%. But yeah.
Again, we won't come to a final conclusion about this. But if the audiences do enough research, they will be able to figure who the actual performers are between the AAP, BJP and Congress.
Correct. Or they can just subscribe to Think School.
Are you going to go in that territory? Will you ever go into this whole Congress performance breakdown?
Yes.
You will.
Yeah. Because it's an important subject for business.
Why?
For example, Sikkim has done an incredible job with organic farming, bro. Whereas if you look at Sri Lanka, they failed miserably. And organic farming is a very difficult sector to capture. Do you know, Sikkim is, I think, the first or the second organic state in the world. And they've done a phenomenal job. The reason why they're able to do a phenomenal job is because they were able to A, understand the economics of organic farming. The government was able to spot the demand for organic products. And number 3, they were able to educate people about the economics of organic farming. They were able to explain the importance of organic farming in the future, and they were able to execute it properly. Okay. And that is very beautiful. So as an entrepreneur, if I understand that Sikkim is the go-to state for organic farming, I will go to Sikkim and I will see if I could set up a warehouse over there and become a wholesaler.
Mad. Okay. Loving this conversation.
At the same time, there are multiple other states which are learning from Sikkim, and they're also trying to execute the same policies that Sikkim executed so that even they can become an organic state. Why? Because of pesticides, there are a lot of health issues, and more importantly, the groundwater is being polluted. So states by default understand that because of Green Revolution, back then we were forced to use those kind of methods, but now we have to get out of it. If we don't, the nation will be in a disaster. And as an entrepreneur, if I understand that Maharashtra is applying the same policies as Sikkim, because I know what happened in Sikkim, I'll be able to invest wisely in Maharashtra so that I can capitalize on the organic farming wave in Maharashtra. That is the reason why, like I said, government is the godfather of the market. If you understand what the godfather likes and what he doesn't like, you'll be able to capitalize on those opportunities, which otherwise you will never ever have access to.
Okay. Do you buy the BJP narrative about अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं from back in 2014, I believe? And even the अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं narrative now. I don't think they say that anymore. But both BJP politicians as well as pro-Modi Indians will always say that the next 30 years are India's to be one.
Yeah.
I'm asking you the exact specific in terms of how acha.
Okay, I will tell you why this is a beautiful marketing campaign and it's good for India in the long run.
Sure.
When they say अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं, do you realize it is talking to the grassroots of Indian society and it is instilling hope. Hope is very, very powerful. When the entire nation believes that the next 3 decades are going to be our decades, because of that optimism, they will work very well. And that is what turned Japan into what it is today, that the entire nation collectively believed that although we've been through a lot, in the next 3 decades, we have to build a nation that the world aspires to become. So, अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं, regardless of what that has resulted into, the one thing that I can say for sure is that it has resulted into a lot of optimism, and Indians have regained their faith about a better India tomorrow. Now, as far as a marketing campaign is concerned, this is a brilliant campaign because it is understood by everybody. And kaun achhe din layega? If BJP is at the center of it, I think it's the perfect product placement ever. It's like Listerine. So Listerine first marketed the idea of halitosis, which is foul breath, and presented itself as a solution to foul breath. Before that, Listerine was a generic product. It could be used for wounds, it could be used for ulcer, it could be used for a lot of things. It could also be used for toilet cleaning, by the way. Would you put toilet cleaner in your mouth? No. So the messaging was not strong enough. But then this marketing agency came up and they said, you know what, let's define the problem first and then tell people that, okay, this is the problem and here's your solution. And that is Listerine. That's exactly what BJP has done. They say that these are the problems in the country that we've been facing. And the culprit for that is XYZ party. And we are here to solve that. And we will bring Achhe Din to India, which is to me, a genius marketing strategy. So if you look at it from the nation perspective, it's a great thing and every party should do that because it instills hope, and hope is very powerful. For a developing nation, that is perhaps one of the most important forces that will grow our country, that will grow our economy. From the marketing standpoint, it's a genius marketing strategy.
Okay. Do you truly feel that the Congress fucked up the country?
No, I will tell you why. So before I studied Singapore, I always thought the same as others. I thought Congress hasn't done a good job. But if you look at what a nation undergoes after it gets independence, it's crazy, bro. We could have had military dictatorship, just like Pakistan. We could have had a very unstable government like Pakistan. We could have been invaded by other countries. For example, when Singapore got independence, when Lee Kuan Yew came to power, he was extremely worried because a neighboring country actually saw a military coup. And he was extremely scared that because Singapore is located at a very strategic location, they might invade Singapore. Okay. So when a nation as big as India gets independence, everybody has their eyes on India. When Portugal became a democratic country, it became a breeding ground for drug cartels. And that ruined the country for the next 2 decades. 1% of the entire population of Portugal was a drug addict. So I believe that the success of the Congress government lies in keeping the country intact immediately after independence when the country was in a very, very sensitive situation. I believe their achievement lies in keeping the country drug-free during a situation when we could have easily fallen prey to these drug cartels. And they were able to maintain a country with less chaos, if not no chaos. However, I also believe that the socialistic principles of Congress may not have been the best thing that happened to India. Because if you look at China, like I said, they opened up their economy in 1978. We were 13 years late. 1991. Before 1991, if you wanted to open up a watch company in India, it was very difficult. And there was only one watch company in India, which was Hindustan Machine Tools. And Tatas had to struggle to open up a company in India. And that is what led to Titan. Which is why Titan is not just Tata, it is Tamil Nadu government and Tata Industries. TI, Tata Industries, TAN, Tamil Nadu government. If this was the case, do you realize we were stopping ourselves from so many opportunities? In fact, in the 1970s, do you know what happened? Suddenly the government of India came up and said to Coca-Cola and IBM that, listen guys, we are going to own a piece of your business in India and you will have to decrease your stake from your own business. So what happened? Coca-Cola left, IBM left, they came back after liberalization. Now when these kind of policies were executed, for whatever reasons they were executed for, I believe they may not have been the best things to happen to India.
Okay. Would you like to cover anything else in this geopolitics and politics special today? Because I think we've kind of focused on India on this one, and I'm sure we could do America the same way in a future episode.
Yes.
I guess we have an all-star, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know if I'll be able to give you guys enough information as much as Abhijit Chavda sir, but yeah, I'll try my best.
Dude, you are also built for the world of podcasting. Had a lot of respect for you just on the basis of the content I saw. It's increased even more getting to know the podcasting side of you, which is a much closer representation of the real person according to me. Like it's great. And there's a need for both informational content and this kind of content. I believe a combination of these two things actually builds mindsets. And that's one thing that young content creators can do for the country.
Yeah.
This is what a lot of my mentors have told me, that your job is to help build mindsets. And honestly, that's kind of what all the politicians from all the parties have also echoed. Are you hopeful about where we're going in the 20s and 30s?
I'm very hopeful, bro, because we're following the trajectory of China. We've opened up our economy. We've laid very solid foundations to invite many more businesses. We are already the most populous country in the world. The world is moving out of China because China wants them to move out, and also because the world wants to move out of China. And that means a lot of opportunities for not just India, but also Indonesia, Vietnam, and Bangladesh. So Asia as a whole, they will see some beautiful years in the next 3 decades. And India being at the center of it, I think we are about to see an economic revolution in the next 2 decades.
What do you think can possibly go wrong in this India story going forward?
Inconsistent government policies.
Inconsistent government policies.
Correct.
Or an inconsistent government?
No, inconsistent government policies. Because governments might come and go. As in, parties may come and go, but they have 2 options. One is to build upon what the previous party built, or to destroy what the previous party built and then start something new again. With China, that wasn't the case because they're not like us. So the government for 3 decades was focused in a single direction, because of which they were able to build what they've built. Whereas with us, we have the risk of changing parties which may destroy the foundations that have been laid by this party, and they may do things in their own way, which may be disastrous for the nation. For example, let's take the case of Digital India. Do you know about the India Stack?
It's something being adopted by other countries, this whole digital infrastructure, UPI.
Yes, not by other countries, but what we've built in India over here. It is such a beautiful concept. So we had Aadhaar. Then we saw Jan Dhan Yojana in 2014 when Modi ji said everybody is supposed to open up bank accounts. We opened up 500 million bank accounts. And then we saw GST. In between, we saw Aadhaar linking with PAN. So identity was established, bank accounts were given, then Aadhaar and PAN got linked, or at least the process started back then. In between, we saw the rise of RuPay, and today RuPay is one of the strongest players in the debit card market. Then we saw GST, then we saw UPI, and now we are seeing OCEN, OCEN, Open Credit Enablement Network, which means today if you are an MSME, a micro, small or medium enterprise, last year, had you gone to the banks and taken up a loan, the loans would come at a cost of 30%, 40% interest, even if that was a small amount like 50,000 rupees. But now the government has laid the foundation with something called Open Credit Enablement Network. So because the MSMEs have a GST certificate, because they have Aadhaar, because their PAN is linked and everything is connected together, now OCEN is built on that fundamental infrastructure by which, because you're using UPI to make transactions, the government will be able to check how much money you're receiving and how much money you're giving out. So even for a small Kirana store, this is what Paytm has done with Paytm Soundbox, that if you have a cash flow of 3 lakh rupees, and let's say you're operating in an industry which has a 15-20% margin, so Paytm understands that you might be making somewhere around 60,000 rupees per month. So if you apply for a loan of 10,000 rupees, Paytm will process it without any procedures. Similarly with OCEN, if you're an MSME and you apply for loan 1 year later from today, after this foundation is built, you will be able to get loans very easily. And MSME sector contributes 33% to our GDP, employs over 110 million people. So do you see, Aadhaar led to Jan Dhan Yojana, led to RuPay, led to GST, led to UPI, and now we are looking at OCEN. And on the same foundation, we're also building unified health interface. So if we keep on building over the foundations that we've already built, we will end up doing something absolutely extraordinary, which is what we've seen in the past 9 years with Digital India. So if we continue to do so over the next 3 decades, you can imagine all of this has happened in just 1 decade. So for the next 3 years, if we keep building on that, things will be good. If we don't build upon that, things will be disastrous because we've already spent a lot into building this infrastructure. And if we don't build upon that, this will go to waste. Plus, we'll spend more to build more foundations.
Okay. What I'm going to say now might seem like some sort of accusation upon you or an attack upon you, but it's not. I'm just saying this so that the audience works on its own thinking process. My angle here is, what if even you're in an echo chamber, which is built up of capitalists like yourself?
True. That is quite possible. And I say this to my audience also, which is why I never give out my opinions in my videos. Like, when you ask me whether this government is doing a good job or not, I did not give you a yes or no answer. I told you that these are the parameters. Go and check for yourself. Because it's a very nuanced answer. And same is the case with me also. Because I am in this echo chamber, with or without my choice, I am bound to be biased. I will try my level best not to be, but even then, there is a very high possibility that I might be slightly biased, which is why we speak only data, we give out the study materials so that people can cut through our bias and study data by themselves and draw their own conclusions.
Bro, you please go hang with some communists now. No, I'm kidding, dude. My point is, maybe the things that you count as success are often money and finances based. Now let's take that to success of a nation or a government. Again, it's money and finances based because you're capitalist in your heart.
No. When it comes to assessing the government, like I said, there are also social indicators, and economic indicators are just one part of the 3-part judgment. So if you delve deep into social indicators, then we're not looking at it from the capitalistic standpoint, we are looking at it from a socialistic standpoint.
I'm as capitalist as you are. Like, I'm on the same page. But I've just learned to constantly disagree with guests who are allowing me to disagree with them. Because it just leads to more nuanced conversation.
True.
I would love to have a conversation with you and an extremely anti-Modi journalist. Just to see what they say.
I might agree with a lot of things that they say, by the way.
Yeah. No, for sure. You're doing great. It's not easy to do what you're doing for sure, both from a back-end perspective and to kind of create the content with the look, the research and all that you are creating. So just I'm really looking forward to see what the next 10, 20, 30 years create for you. It'll be very, very interesting because as a footballer, you know another footballer's game. It's just you and Dhruv Rathi who I put in that category of pure love for content. So thank you. I appreciate your time, my man.
Thank you so much, man.
I hope to have you on the show very soon.
I'm hoping so too.
Awesome. See you soon.
Thank you so much.
That was the episode for today. Right after we shot this one, I had a conversation with Ganesh where we figured that we should do these geopolitical conversations regularly because the kind of flavor that was extracted in this particular podcast was something I had not seen before in geopolitical conversations and something that Ganesh had not seen before from a content perspective. So in the same way that Abhijit Chavda and Ranveer are a dream combo, I feel like I have another dream combo in my hands here with Ganesh. We're going to be doing a lot more geopolitics-centric episodes. Perhaps the next time we'll speak only about China. Maybe we'll speak only about the Gulf. There's some very interesting things happening in the world of geopolitics. But you need minds like Ganeshprasad to actually help extract the most raw form of that knowledge. Keep listening to TRS. We're going to be back soon with lots of epic episodes with this newfound TRS All-Star in the form of Think School, aka Ganeshprasad.